If you've ever been to London, you've probably walked through the Strand, and you've definitely passed the Somerset House. Nowadays, Somerset House is a home for culture innovators. Here you can find diverse creative opportunities, exhibit your work, and use the iconic courtyard for events. The house is a host for British summertime from June to August and has installed ice skating rinks in the winter. Although Somerset House is a fun public space now, it has one of the longest histories of all the London palaces. It survived 1666 Great Fire of London and the World War II, although the south wing was a bit damaged. The mansion was first built in 1547 for Edward Seymour, the Duke of Somerset at the time. He headed the dissolution of monasteries and seized the real estate from St. Paul's Cathedral for his residential palace on the Thames. But before the house was finished, he was overthrown for treason, and the royal family took over the house. Queen Elizabeth I briefly lived here before her coronation. Later, the house was passed down to Anne of Denmark in 1603. She renamed it to Denmark House and had a Denmark-trained architect Inigo Jones to redesign and rebuild part of the palace. He added orangeries, theaters, and a really famous three-folded courtyard. The last royal member, Catherine of Braganza, left Denmark House in 1693. In the 1700s, Denmark House was used as a grace and favor apartment. Grace and favor apartment means it's owned by the monarch but leased to people rent-free. Other grace and favor apartments include 10 Downing Street. During this time, the Italian painter Canaletto painted the two views from the riverside terrace. By 1775, after decades of neglect, Denmark House, or the original Somerset House, was demolished, and the architect William Chamber started working on its replacement. Chamber was also the architect of the Great Pagoda at Kew Garden. He knew at the time that this would be his most significant work, and he barely worked on any other project ever since. He traveled extensively to mainland to study architecture before working on the new Somerset House. One design move worth noting here is the entrance of the Strand side. The scale was inspired by San Gallo's Palazzo Farnese in Rome, and the double column was inspired by the west wing of the Louvre. The new Somerset House was about to be the first office complex in London. Previously practiced as an architect myself, it's endearing to see how one of the best architects in history was also sweating over office layout and space planning when he juggled the request of all departments that needed his space. The Royal Academy of Art became its first tenant in the North Wing in 1779. The embankment building, known today as the South Wing, was completed in 1789 and was shared by Navy Board, Birchuk Kelly commissioners, Sick and Hurt commissioners, as well as a museum in the center. The East and West Wings were completed 2 years later in 1788, and by 1789, the Navy Board completed its move to Somerset House and eventually occupied 1/3 of the site. The stamp office, responsible for taxing newspaper and other documents, joined the board in the South Wing. By 1836, the General Register Office, responsible for birth, death, and marriages, was also established.
Now, what becomes of that record of the child's birth? It goes, together with records of deaths and marriages, to Somerset House, London, which celebrates its centenary this year as the General Register Office. You may find you need a copy of the certificate, so you fill up a form which authorizes you to search the records.
The new wing, which previously was used as a housing unit, was expanded by 1856 by architect James Pennethorne, and it was also used by the combination of Navy Board and Stamps Office, now called Inland Revenue. And this entire time, embankment project has not happened. So in the past, the house sat directly along the Thames River, and you can access the south wing by boat. Hence, the river terrace was called the river terrace. Here's another image from the river terrace in 1850, when the river had a low tide. From both of the paintings, you can see the busy river, the Blackfriar Bridge, and the St. Paul's Cathedral. The embankment project was completed by 1870, and from these images, you could see River Terrace is no longer on top of the River Thames, and people can access the embankment building from the south side of the house. In the latter half of the 1900s, different government offices started to move out of Somerset House. By the end of the 90s, Somerset House Trust was established to turn the architecture for public use, and they installed the first temporary ice rink in the winter of 2000. Ever since then, it has been used as a backdrop of a plethora of public events, such as fashion shows and concerts. Architecture is the context of our lives. We eat, sleep, work, learn, and interact with each other inside of them. It's really amazing to see how Somerset House has been adapting to the lives of its inhabitants for more than 400 years. It always brings a sense of reverence out of me, knowing how much history it has witnessed. You can see the architecture in movies and read about it in novels. It has really become a culture icon of our time.